Picture yourself holding the opening pages of the Bible, where the story of humanity's origins unfolds. But what if I told you this story might hide a deeper secret? A mystery that could completely reshape how you understand Adam and the creation. What if Adam wasn't the first human to ever walk the earth, but the first chosen for a mission entirely unique? Genesis, with its ancient wisdom, may be concealing truths forgotten for millennia. Could there have been other humans, living in a distant world, before Adam stepped into the Garden of Eden? These questions don't just challenge your knowledge of the Bible. They might shake the very foundations of your faith. Are you ready to embark on a journey that will transform how you see the creation story forever? If you're prepared to dive deep into the mysteries of Genesis, drop 888 in the comments to let us know you're joining us on this exploration. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who loves unraveling biblical mysteries. Because once you hear what's coming, you'll never read Genesis the same way again. Let's open the door to the hidden truth together. Who was the first human before Adam? The concealed truth in Genesis is about to be revealed. Let's begin our journey by turning to the very first pages of the Bible, where the story of humanity's origins is told with an air of mystery. Genesis, the opening book of the Bible, seems to offer a creation story we all think we know. God creates the world, humanity appears, and everything begins. But if you pause and read closely, you'll notice something curious. Genesis doesn't just tell one story. It presents two distinct accounts of how humanity was created. And it's this difference that has sparked questions debated by scholars for centuries. Was Adam truly the first human? Or is there something deeper hidden within these pages? In Genesis 1:26-27, we encounter words brimming with authority. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky." So God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God He created them. Male and female He created them. This scene is majestic, like a king standing atop a mountain, proclaiming the creation of humanity with a commanding tone. Here, God is called Elohim, a Hebrew name that emphasizes His supreme power, the creator of all things. There are no personal details, no specific names, no mention of a particular garden. Humanity, male and female, is created simultaneously, as if the crowning achievement of creation, entrusted with the mission to rule the earth. The language is vast, cosmic, painting a grand picture of life itself. But when we turn to Genesis 2, the story shifts dramatically. Imagine that sweeping canvas suddenly zooming in, like a camera moving from a wide-angle shot to an intimate close-up filled with emotion. In Genesis 2:7, we read, "Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." Here, God doesn't just speak humanity into existence. He personally forms Adam from the dust, like a master craftsman shaping a masterpiece. This act is personal, intimate, and full of care. Then, in Genesis 2:18-22, God sees that it is not good for the man to be alone, and creates Eve from Adam's rib, an act not just of creation, but a symbol of the deep bond between humans and with God. So what's the difference between these two accounts? In Genesis 1, humanity is created as a collective, with no specific details, no names, just mankind. But in Genesis 2, we meet a specific Adam, placed in a garden, given a task, and gifted a companion. Is this merely the same story told with more detail? Or are these two entirely different events? Some scholars argue that Genesis 2 is simply a closer look at Genesis 1, but others pose a bolder question. Could Genesis 1 be about the creation of humanity as a whole, while Genesis 2 focuses on one chosen individual, Adam, with a unique purpose? This ambiguity opens the door to mysteries we're about to uncover. To dive deeper into this mystery, we need to turn to the original language of the Bible, Hebrew. One of the keys to unlocking this story lies in the word Adam, a term that carries far more layers of meaning than we might realize. In Hebrew, Adam isn't just the name of a person. It can mean human, mankind, or even man in a generic sense. This flexibility makes interpretation both complex and fascinating. Let's explore how this word is used in the first 2 chapters of Genesis to see if it reveals anything about the possibility of humans existing before Adam. In Genesis 1:26-27, when God says, "Let us make Adam in our image," the word Adam here is understood as mankind. The text doesn't point to a specific individual, but to a collective, male and female, created together, bearing God's image. Here, Adam carries a broad meaning, referring to all of humanity, blessed to multiply and rule the earth. There's no personal detail, no garden, no individual story. It's like a cosmic declaration of humanity's arrival on the world stage. But when we move to Genesis 2:7, the word Adam takes on a different tone. Here, the text uses the phrase ha-Adam, where ha is the Hebrew definite article, meaning the man, or that specific man. This signals that we're no longer talking about humanity in general, but about a particular individual. Adam, formed by God from the dust, given the breath of life, and placed in the Garden of Eden. This shift isn't just linguistic, it's a clue to a change in the story's focus. Genesis 1 speaks of humanity as a species, while Genesis 2 zooms in on one chosen person with a distinct mission. To make this clearer, think of the word Adam as a multifaceted lens. In one view, it represents all of humanity, the way we might say mankind, to mean everyone. In another view, it points to a specific individual, someone God entrusted with a unique role. This layered meaning has fueled debates among scholars and theologians for centuries. Is the Adam of Genesis 1 the same as the Adam of Genesis 2? Or does Genesis 1 describe the creation of humanity as a whole, while Genesis 2 tells of one person chosen to begin a sacred covenant with God? This question isn't just about language. It opens a gateway to deeper mysteries about humanity's origins. For further insight, consider Psalm 8:4-5, where the author writes, "What is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. You have made them a little lower than the angels and crowned them with glory and honor." Here, the Hebrew word for mankind is also Adam, referring to humanity as a whole. This supports the idea that Adam in Genesis 1 might not be an individual, but a symbol of all people created in God's image. Yet in Genesis 2, Haggai Adam becomes a specific figure with a story, a garden, and a mission. This distinction raises a provocative question. Could there have been a group of people created before Adam was placed in Eden? Now, let's step into the Garden of Eden. Not just a place, but a mystery waiting to be explored. When we think of Eden, many of us picture it as the starting point of all life, the entire earth in its pristine state. But if we read Genesis closely, a different image emerges. Eden isn't the whole world. It's a distinct, special place designed for a divine purpose. And this realization leads us to a compelling question. Could there have been other humans living outside Eden? In Genesis 2:8, the Bible states, "Now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed." Notice the wording. God plants a garden in a specific place called Eden and places Adam there. This suggests that Eden is a unique location, not the entire earth. The Hebrew word for Eden means delight or paradise, hinting that this was a special place designed for God and humanity to meet. Scholars often compare Eden to a temple, a sacred space where God's presence dwells. To shed light on this, consider Ezekiel 28:13-14, which describes Eden as a transcendent place. You were in Eden, the garden of God. You were on the holy mount of God. Here, Eden isn't just a garden, it's called a holy mountain, an image often tied to places of worship in the Bible, like Mount Sinai or the Jerusalem Temple. This reinforces the idea that Eden was a sacred space, separate from the wider world. Adam wasn't just placed in a garden to tend plants. He was entrusted with a priestly role, caring for and guarding a holy place. But if Eden was a distinct space, what does that mean for the rest of the world? Could there have been other lands, other people living outside Eden, beyond Adam's covenant story? Genesis doesn't say explicitly, but this silence sparks curiosity. Think of it this way. If Eden was a temple, then like any temple in history, it existed within a larger world filled with other peoples and civilizations. Could Genesis be focusing on Eden because it's where God chose to begin his redemptive plan, while the world beyond remained, waiting to be told? To expand on this, look at Genesis 2:10-14, which describes 4 rivers flowing from Eden, including the Tigris and Euphrates. Real rivers in history, located in Mesopotamia. This suggests Eden was a specific place within an existing world, not the entirety of the earth. If so, it raises a question. Could there have been other people living along these rivers, outside Eden's boundaries? These details have led theologians and scholars to wonder, is Adam's story just the beginning of a covenant, not the beginning of all humanity? Now, let's come to the heart of the matter. The question that stops us in our tracks. Was Adam truly the first human biologically, or was he the first chosen for a divine purpose? This is where the story gets truly captivating, as it challenges what we've often been taught. If Genesis 1 tells of the creation of humanity as a whole, and Genesis 2 focuses on Adam as an individual with a mission, it opens up a stunning possibility. There could have been other humans existing before or alongside Adam, but he was the first God called by name, placed in Eden, and entrusted with a unique role. Think of it like a grand play. In Genesis 1, God creates the entire cast, humanity, to fill the stage of the world. But in Genesis 2, he chooses a lead actor, Adam, to begin a special story, one of covenant, responsibility, and choice. This doesn't mean Adam was the only human on earth, but that he was the first God selected to represent humanity in a sacred relationship. To illustrate, consider Romans 5:14, where Paul calls Adam a pattern of the one to come, Jesus. Here, Adam isn't just a person, he's a symbol, a representative of all humanity in God's plan. But if there were other humans before Adam, who were they? Did they bear God's image? And why doesn't the Bible tell their story? Some theologians suggest that Genesis focuses on Adam because he marks the start of a covenant, a sacred agreement between God and humanity, where humans are given freedom and moral responsibility. Others, like ancient Jewish thinkers, propose that there may have been worlds or beings before Adam, but they weren't part of the covenant lineage the Bible emphasizes. For example, in Jewish mystical tradition, Kabbalah, some rabbis speculated about worlds before Adam's, destroyed because they failed to fulfill God's purpose. This question isn't just about history or biology. It strikes at the core of our faith. If Adam wasn't the first human biologically, but the first entrusted with a divine mission, does that change how we understand humanity? Could there have been a wider world beyond Eden, where other humans lived, loved, and built their lives? These questions don't have easy answers, but they invite us to dig deeper into the Bible, its language, and our own hearts. Let's pause for a moment and step into one of the most enigmatic moments in Genesis, the story of Cain, the firstborn son of Adam and Eve. After committing the tragic act of killing his brother Abel, Cain faces God's judgment. But it's Cain's words in Genesis 4:13-14 that have puzzled theologians and Bible readers for centuries. Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Whoever finds me will kill me." Stop and reflect. Who is Cain talking about? At this point in the story, we only know of Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. But Abel is dead. So who are these whoever that Cain fears? Could there be a larger world beyond Adam's small family, where other people live, ready to threaten Cain? This question is like a doorway into a hidden room, where the answers are unclear but endlessly fascinating. If only Adam, Eve, and Cain are alive, why is Cain afraid of being killed? His plea isn't just personal fear. It seems to hint at a greater reality, a world with other people whose identities the Bible doesn't reveal. To shed light on this, consider God's response in Genesis 4:15. The Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. This mark doesn't just protect Cain, it suggests there are others out there, people capable of harming him. But who are they? Where did they come from? And why does the Bible remain silent about them? To dig deeper, think about the context of the story. Cain isn't just a rebellious son. He's a character in a larger narrative about humanity's fall. His fear isn't only about survival. It reflects a world already slipping into chaos after the first sin. Some scholars suggest that Cain's words might refer to later generations of Adam and Eve's descendants, not yet mentioned. But this raises another question. How could there be enough people in such a short time to pose a threat to Cain? This question pulls us into a deeper mystery. Could there have been other people, outside Adam's direct lineage, living beyond Eden? Hold this question in your mind, because it will lead us to the next revelations. The mystery deepens as we continue Cain's story in Genesis 4:17. Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. Wait a second. Where did Cain get a wife? And why would someone, one of the few people on earth, need to build a city? A city isn't just a house or a small village. It implies a community, a place where many people live. These details open a door to questions that demand reflection. Who were the people living in Cain's city? And where did they come from? Let's start with the question of Cain's wife. The Bible doesn't specify who she was, sparking numerous theories. A common hypothesis is that Cain married a sister or another descendant of Adam and Eve. In Genesis 5:4, we read that Adam lived 800 years after Seth was born, and he had other sons and daughters. This suggests Adam and Eve could have had many other children, unnamed in the Bible. According to this view, Cain might have married one of his sisters. However, this theory raises a problem. At the time Cain left his family, would there have been enough time for generations of descendants to grow into a group large enough for Cain to fear? or for him to marry and build a city. Furthermore, ancient cultures might not have viewed sibling marriage as normal without further explanation, making this hypothesis less convincing to some. A bolder theory, known as the two-creation theory, proposes that other humans existed outside Eden, created in Genesis 1 when God made mankind in general. Meanwhile, Adam and Eve in Genesis 2 were specially chosen to live in Eden and carry a covenant mission. In this view, Cain's wife could have been from the people outside Eden, and the city of Enoch was built to house these people, not necessarily Adam's direct descendants. To support this idea, consider how the Bible focuses on the covenant lineage. From Adam to Seth, then to Noah, and later to Abraham. It's possible the Bible intentionally omits details about others to emphasize the spiritual story of the chosen line. The city of Enoch deepens the mystery further. In the ancient world, building a city required a significant community. Think of the earliest cities in history, like Uruk in Mesopotamia, which needed hundreds or thousands of people to sustain. Could Cain have built a city with just his small family? Or did he arrive in a place where people already lived? And the city of Enoch was where he sought safety after his exile? These questions lack clear answers, but they invite us to ponder a larger world, where other humans might have lived outside Eden's story. Cain's story doesn't end with his fear or the building of a city. After facing God's judgment, Cain is sent to a place called Nod, described in Genesis 4:16. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. The word Nod in Hebrew means wandering or exile, suggesting a place of isolation and separation. But this detail raises a new question. What kind of place was Nod? And could it have been home to other people outside Adam's lineage? Imagine Cain, banished from Eden, stepping into an unfamiliar land. The Bible doesn't describe Nod as a barren wasteland, but as a specific location, east of Eden. This implies Nod was part of an existing world, possibly with its own inhabitants. To clarify, consider Eden's geographical context. In Genesis 2:10-14, 4 rivers flowing from Eden are mentioned, including the Tigris and Euphrates, linking Eden to Mesopotamia, the cradle of ancient civilizations like Sumer and Akkad. If Eden was a specific place within a larger world, then Nod, to the east, could have been a region already populated. Did Cain encounter other people there, people outside his family's covenant story? To expand this idea, consider another biblical clue in Genesis 6:1-4, which speaks of the sons of God marrying the daughters of humans before the Great Flood. Though this passage comes later, some scholars suggest the daughters of humans could refer to people outside Adam's covenant lineage, living in a broader world. If this is true, Nod might have been where Cain integrated into an existing community, where he found a wife and built a new life. Yet the Bible offers no clear details, leaving a mysterious gap that makes us wonder. Is Nod a clue to another humanity, untold in Genesis's main narrative? The Bible's silence on these details isn't accidental. It's like a painting with deliberate shadows, inviting us to reflect. Nod isn't just a geographical place. It's a symbol of separation from God's presence, a world where sin begins to spread. Yet, in this separation, Cain's story hints at a larger reality, a world beyond Eden, where other humans may have lived, worked, and built their lives. Now, let's face the ultimate question. Was there a world beyond Eden, where other humans lived, outside the story of Adam and Eve? Cain's story, with his fear, his wife, and his city, seems to paint a picture of a world far more complex than we often imagine. But why does the Bible remain silent about these people? Is Genesis deliberately focusing on Adam's covenant lineage to tell a spiritual story, rather than documenting the entire history of humanity? Picture Genesis as a book not meant to recount every detail of the world, but to tell a story of the relationship between God and humanity. In this lens, Adam and his family are central because they were chosen to carry a divine mission, a covenant with God, where humans are given freedom and moral responsibility. But that doesn't mean they were the only humans on earth. Some theologians, drawing from ancient Jewish traditions, speculate that other peoples, created in Genesis 1, lived outside Eden. These people weren't part of the covenant lineage, so the Bible doesn't focus on them. For example, in Acts 17:26, Paul says, "From one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth." Some interpret one man as Adam, but others see it as Paul speaking of humanity's unity, not necessarily a single individual. Another intriguing clue comes from ancient literature outside the Bible. In Mesopotamian myths, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, there are stories of cities and peoples existing in humanity's early days. While not biblical, these texts show that ancient civilizations believed the world was populated early on. Could Genesis be hinting at a similar context, where Cain stepped into a world with existing communities? This possibility makes us reflect. Perhaps Genesis isn't silent because there's nothing to say, but because it wants us to focus on the covenant story, the story of how God chose one man, one family, to begin his plan of redemption. Now, let's take a new turn in our journey of discovery, where modern science and the ancient story of the Bible converge, sparking a fascinating dialogue. As we question whether there were humans before Adam, science offers a unique perspective with two intriguing concepts: mitochondrial Eve and Y-chromosomal Adam. These names sound like they could be lifted straight from the Bible, but they're actually scientific terms referring to the most recent common ancestors of modern humans. But can they help us unravel the mystery of Adam? Or do they only deepen the questions about humanity's origins? Mitochondrial Eve is the woman from whom all living humans today inherit their mitochondrial DNA, a type of DNA passed down solely through the maternal line. Scientists estimate she lived around 150,000 to 200,000 years ago, possibly in East Africa. Meanwhile, Y-chromosomal Adam is the man from whom all modern men inherit their Y chromosome, believed to have lived between 60,000 and 300,000 years ago, depending on the research model. Here's the surprising twist. Mitochondrial Eve and Y-chromosomal Adam didn't live at the same time, weren't a couple, and most importantly, weren't the first humans on Earth. They were simply the most recent common ancestors in two distinct genetic lines. This means many other humans lived alongside them, forming larger communities. So, what does this have to do with Adam's story in Genesis? Think of it as a puzzle. Science shows that modern humans, Homo sapiens, emerged hundreds of thousands of years ago, with communities growing over time. But this timeline doesn't align with the traditional understanding of Adam, often placed around 6,000 to 10,000 years ago in some biblical interpretations. Does this mean Genesis is wrong? Or is it telling a completely different story? Not about the biological origins of humanity, but about a spiritual beginning. Consider a clue from John 1:1-3, where the Bible describes Jesus as the Word who was present at the beginning, through whom all things were made. This suggests that Scripture is more concerned with the spiritual meaning of creation than a precise biological timeline. Could Genesis be trying to tell us about our biological origins? Or is it revealing a deeper truth about the relationship between humanity and God? Scientists like Francis Collins, author of The Language of God, argue that science and faith don't have to conflict. He suggests that Adam's story might be symbolic, representing the moment when humans first became aware of God and their moral responsibilities. If so, mitochondrial Eve and Y-chromosomal Adam don't contradict Genesis. Instead, they offer a scientific view of humanity's development, while the Bible tells of a spiritual journey that begins with Adam. What do you think? Are science and Scripture telling the same story about humanity, just from different perspectives? If science opens a broader world about humanity's origins, theology brings us back to the heart of Genesis's story. Adam is not just a human, but a covenant man, chosen by God to represent humanity in a sacred relationship. To understand this, we need to see how the Bible uses Adam not only as a historical figure, but as a symbol of all humanity, and even more, as a foreshadowing of Jesus, the last Adam. Let's start with Romans 5:12, where Paul writes, "Therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, and in this way death came to all people, because all sinned." Here, Adam isn't described as a lone individual, but as a representative of humanity, the one who brought sin into the world through disobedience. This is known as the concept of federal headship in theology, where Adam acts on behalf of all humanity. Crucially, Paul doesn't say Adam was the first human biologically. He emphasizes that Adam was the first entrusted with a covenant with God, bearing moral responsibility and the consequences of his choices. To clarify, let's compare Adam to Jesus in 1 Corinthians 15:45-47. The first man, Adam, became a living being. The last, Adam, a life-giving spirit. The first man was of the dust of the earth. The second man is of heaven. Paul doesn't call Jesus the second Adam, but the last Adam, as if Adam and Jesus are two bookends in humanity's story. Adam represents the fall, bringing sin and death. Jesus represents redemption, bringing life and reconciliation. This shows that Adam's role isn't just about being the first, but about starting a spiritual journey, one we're all part of. Think of Adam as the head of a spiritual family. In ancient cultures, the family head didn't just represent himself, but his entire lineage. Similarly, Adam was chosen to carry a covenant with God, where he had the freedom to choose between obedience and rebellion. When he chose to eat the forbidden fruit in Genesis 3:6, he didn't just break the covenant for himself. He drew all of humanity into a spiral of separation from God. But the story doesn't end there. In Luke 3:38, tracing Jesus' genealogy, the Bible calls Adam the Son of God, suggesting that Adam's role wasn't just as a human, but as someone uniquely connected to God, beginning a story that leads to redemption through Jesus. This raises a question. If Adam was the covenant man, was he the only human on earth, or simply the one chosen to represent humanity in God's plan? Theology doesn't require Adam to be the first human biologically. Instead, it emphasizes that he was the first to bear moral responsibility before God. This opens a possibility. There may have been other humans, but Adam was the first called by name, placed in a sacred space, and entrusted with a mission. Does this story resonate with you, touching your heart, where you too are called to live in relationship with God? To dig deeper into the mystery of what might have existed before Adam, we must turn to ancient thought, not just in the Bible, but in early Jewish and Christian traditions. Ancient thinkers weren't afraid to ask, could there have been worlds, beings, or even other humans before Adam entered Eden? Though sometimes speculative, These reflections open new perspectives on the creation story. One of the most intriguing ideas comes from Jewish mystical tradition known as Kabbalah. Some ancient rabbis believed that God created multiple worlds before ours, but these worlds were destroyed because they failed to fulfill His divine purpose. In Genesis 1:2, when the Bible describes the earth as formless and empty, in Hebrew, tohu vabohu, some Jewish thinkers suggested this chaotic state might be the remnant of previous worlds. Could it be that before Adam was created, there were other events or beings the Bible doesn't detail? This idea isn't just speculation. It reflects humanity's deep curiosity about the universe and our place in it. In Christian tradition, two towering thinkers laid the groundwork for these discussions. Origen, 184 to 253 AD, and Augustine, 354 to 430 AD. Origen, an early theologian, proposed that a spiritual world existed before the physical one. He suggested that souls existed before being placed in human bodies, and Genesis' story symbolizes a fall from a spiritual to a material state. Though Origen's ideas were later rejected by the Church, he opened a new way of thinking, encouraging us to see Genesis not just as a historical account, but as a spiritual portrait of humanity's purpose. Augustine, a profoundly influential Christian theologian, took a different approach. In his work, The City of God, he argued that the days of creation in Genesis weren't literal 24-hour days, but symbolic phases of God's ordering of creation. Augustine didn't directly support the idea of humans before Adam, but he acknowledged that the creation story holds deeper meanings beyond the surface. He wrote that the Bible was meant to guide people to God, not to serve as a scientific record. Both Origen and Augustine invite us to view Genesis as a story not just about what happened, but why it happened. For further insight, consider Job 38:4-7, where God asks Job, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy?" This passage suggests that before the earth was fully formed, spiritual beings, sons of God, witnessed creation. These beings weren't human, but their presence hints that the universe has a far deeper history than Adam's story. Could there have been events or beings before Adam that Genesis only briefly mentions? These ancient thoughts don't provide definitive answers, but they urge us to ask questions and seek truth. Now, let's bring the story back to the present, where the mystery of Adam isn't just a historical or theological question, but an invitation to reflect on ourselves. Whether Adam was the first human biologically or simply the first chosen for a sacred covenant, his story echoes in every one of our hearts. Adam isn't just a figure from the past. He's a mirror reflecting our struggles between freedom and responsibility, obedience and rebellion, purpose and pride. Think of the moment in Genesis 3:8-9, when Adam and Eve, after sinning, hear God walking in the garden and hid from the Lord among the trees of the garden. Then God calls out, "Where are you?" This isn't just a question for Adam. It's a question for all of us. Are we hiding from God, avoiding the purpose He has set for our lives? Adam's story isn't just about the fall. It's about the longing to connect with God, the pain of separation, and the hope of return. In Hosea 6:7, the Bible says, "Like Adam, they have broken the covenant." Adam represents all of us, created with a high purpose, but often choosing our own paths. But here's the good news. The story doesn't end in failure. Through Jesus, the last Adam, we're invited back to the garden, not the Eden of the past, but a new paradise where our relationship with God is restored. In Revelation 22:1-2, we see an image of the tree of life in God's new city, a reminder that what Adam lost, Jesus has reclaimed. Adam's story is your story and mine, about being created with purpose, given freedom, and invited to live in harmony with God. Ask yourself, where do you stand in your own garden? Are you walking with God or hiding among the trees like Adam did? Genesis' story isn't just about our origins, it's about our purpose. Whether there were humans before Adam or not, it doesn't change the core truth. You were created to live in relationship with God, to bear His image, and to live a life full of meaning. What do you think? Is Adam's story speaking to you about your own spiritual journey today? We've journeyed together through an extraordinary exploration, from the ancient pages of Genesis to modern questions about humanity's origins. So, was Adam truly the first human? Or was he the first called by God to carry a sacred mission? The answer may not lie in a fossil or a timeline, but in your own heart. Adam's story isn't just a tale from a distant past. It's a mirror reflecting each of our journeys, created with purpose, given freedom, and invited to walk in relationship with God. Is Genesis telling a larger story about humanity, one that stretches beyond the Garden of Eden? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read and respond to everyone, because this conversation is worth continuing. If this video has made you see Adam's story in a new light, hit the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next dive into biblical mysteries. Remember, the Garden of Eden isn't just a place in the past, it's an invitation to rediscover your connection with God right now. We'll see you in the next video. Keep questioning, keep digging, and keep walking in faith.